The whispers cut through the elegant ballroom like knives through silk. Thomas Bradford sat alone at table 12, his 6-year-old daughter Sophie coloring quietly beside him, both pretending not to hear the cruel words floating from the nearby tables. 2 years since Rebecca died and he still can't find anyone. Maybe she knew something we didn't. I heard he was impossible to live with. All that money can't buy happiness, can it? Poor little Sophie. Growing up without a mother because her father drove the first one to an early grave with his coldness. Thomas's jaw tightened, his knuckles white around the champagne flute. He wanted to leave, to grab Sophie and run from this nightmare his business partner's wedding had become. But leaving would confirm their gossip, make it worse for his daughter at school, at birthday parties, everywhere their social circle intersected. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, why are those ladies saying mean things about Mommy?" His heart shattered. Again. For the 1,000th time since Rebecca's cancer had stolen her away. "They don't understand, sweetheart. Just keep coloring your pretty picture. Did you make Mommy sick? Like they said?" Thomas felt tears threatening. How could he explain to a 6-year-old that her mother's illness wasn't anyone's fault? That grief made people cruel? That wealth attracted judgment like honey attracted flies? A woman in a simple green waitress uniform appeared at their table, her dark brown skin glowing under the crystal chandeliers, her eyes full of understanding that made Thomas's chest ache. She leaned down close, her voice barely a whisper meant only for him. "I'm Gabrielle. I've been serving drinks all night, and I've heard every terrible word they've said about you and your wife. It's all lies and cruelty. They're jealous, bitter people." She paused, glancing at Sophie, then back to Thomas. "I have an idea that might help if you'll trust me. Pretend I'm your wife tonight. Let me sit with you and Sophie. Let me help you show them they're wrong." Thomas stared at this stranger, this angel who appeared out of nowhere offering salvation. Every instinct screamed to accept, to grab this lifeline she offered. "Why would you do this?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Gabrielle smiled softly. "Because that little girl deserves better than hearing lies about her mother. Because kindness matters. And because sometimes strangers can help in ways friends can't." Sophie looked up at Gabrielle with wide, hopeful eyes. "Are you nice?" "I try to be, sweetheart." Thomas made his decision in that moment. "Sit down. Please. Tell me what to do." Have you ever watched someone suffer in silence, surrounded by people but completely alone? Have you ever wished you could be brave enough to step in and change everything for them? What would you have done in Gabrielle's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to see how this incredible act of kindness changes 3 lives forever. Thomas Bradford had built a technology empire worth $3 billion by age 38. He could negotiate deals with Fortune 500 companies, command boardrooms full of powerful executives, and make decisions that affected thousands of employees. But sitting at this wedding, watching his daughter's innocent face crumble under the weight of strangers' cruelty, he felt more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. The Riverside Country Club ballroom sparkled with excessive elegance. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across tables draped in cream silk. The wedding of his business partner's daughter should have been a joyful occasion. Instead, it had become Thomas's personal torture chamber. He'd noticed the stares when they arrived. The sudden silence when he and Sophie walked past certain groups. The resumption of conversation in hushed, excited tones once they passed. He'd developed thick skin over the past 2 years since Rebecca died, but nothing prepared him for the viciousness tonight. "Gabrielle Washington," the woman said softly, extending her hand as she sat in the empty chair beside him. "I've worked catering for this club for 3 years. I see everything, hear everything. And tonight I've heard enough." Thomas shook her hand, noticing her firm, confident grip. Her uniform was neat and professional, but it was her eyes that struck him. Deep brown, full of genuine warmth and determination. This wasn't pity. This was solidarity. "Thomas Bradford," he replied. "This is my daughter, Sophie." Sophie studied Gabrielle with the intense scrutiny only children possess. "You're really pretty. Your eyes are kind." Gabrielle's smile brightened the whole table. "Thank you, Sophie. You're beautiful too. What are you drawing?" "A princess, but not a sad one. A happy one with a dragon friend." "That sounds perfect. Dragons make the best friends." Thomas watched this exchange, something loosening in his chest. Sophie hadn't smiled like that at a stranger since her mother died. She'd become cautious, quiet, sensing the world's judgment even when he tried to shield her. "Here's what I'm thinking," Gabrielle said, turning to Thomas while keeping one hand near Sophie's coloring book. "I take my break in 5 minutes. It's slow enough that my supervisor won't mind. I sit here for the next hour, maybe two. We talk like old friends reuniting. Like maybe we dated years ago, lost touch, and recently reconnected. You've been private about your personal life, which is why no one knew. It's believable. Thomas considered this. They'll investigate you. They'll try to dig up dirt. Let them. I'm a 28-year-old waitress who works 2 jobs to support herself. I rent a studio apartment in Riverside Heights. I have student loans from a degree I never finished. My life is an open book, and there's nothing scandalous in it. She met his gaze steadily. I'm not after anything, Mr. Bradford. I don't want money or connections. I just want those women to stop hurting your daughter. Call me Thomas. He glanced toward the tables where the worst gossips sat, their eyes already on him, speculation written across their faces. What made you decide to do this? Gabrielle's expression grew serious. My mother raised me alone. My father left when I was 3. People said terrible things about her, about why he left, about how she must have been a bad wife. None of it was true. He just didn't want the responsibility. But those lies followed us everywhere. I watched my mother cry in secret, try to shield me, pretend everything was fine. She paused. I was about Sophie's age when I first understood what people were saying. It changed something in me. Made me smaller, quieter. I don't want that for her. Thomas felt something shift in his chest. This woman understood. Not from observation or sympathy, but from lived experience. Rebecca, my wife, had ovarian cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. She fought for 18 months. Every day was agony, but she never stopped smiling for Sophie. She died holding my hand, telling me to find happiness again, to give Sophie a full life. His voice cracked. Those women out there are saying I drove her to death with neglect. That I was too focused on work. That I'm cold and unfeeling. They're wrong, Gabrielle said simply. I can see your grief. It's in every line of your face, every careful movement around your daughter. You're not cold. You're careful. There's a difference. Sophie had stopped coloring and was listening intently. Miss Gabrielle, did your mommy get better? After people were mean? She did, sweetheart. She got stronger. She taught me that people's mean words say more about them than about us. Your mommy loved you very much, didn't she? Sophie nodded vigorously. She called me her sunshine. She said I made every day brighter. Then you keep being sunshine. Don't let anyone dim that light. Thomas made his decision. I accept your offer. Completely. Whatever you're willing to do to help us tonight, I'm grateful. Gabrielle stood smoothly. I'll go tell my supervisor I'm taking my break. Be back in 3 minutes. When I return, smile at me like you're happy to see me. Can you do that? For the first time in hours, Thomas felt genuine hope. Yes, I can do that. She walked away, moving gracefully between tables, pausing to refill water glasses with professional efficiency. Thomas watched several heads turn, tracking her progress, curiosity building. Daddy? Sophie whispered. Is Miss Gabrielle going to be our friend? I think so, sweetheart. Good. I like her. She doesn't look at us like we're broken. Those words pierced Thomas's heart. His brilliant, sensitive daughter had noticed. Of course she had. Children always noticed everything that mattered. 2 minutes later, Gabrielle returned. She'd removed her server's apron and let down her hair from its professional bun. Natural curls framed her face, softening her appearance. She wore the green uniform dress, but somehow she transformed it into something that didn't scream staff. She'd added small gold earrings and a touch of lipstick. Thomas stood automatically, proper manners ingrained from childhood, and smiled. It felt rusty and used but genuine. Gabrielle. Thank you for joining us. She smiled back and the warmth reached her eyes. I wouldn't miss it, Thomas. I again, Sophie. May I sit next to you? I want to see how your dragon turns out. Sophie beamed. Yes. You can help me pick colors. As Gabrielle settled into the chair between Thomas and Sophie, he noticed the immediate change in the room's atmosphere. The whispers shifted from malicious to curious. Heads turned more openly. He saw his business partner's wife, Janet, approaching with barely concealed excitement. Thomas, Janet said, her voice bright with nosiness masked as friendliness. I don't believe we've met your friend. Gabrielle stood, extending her hand with perfect confidence. Gabrielle Washington. I'm so sorry we're crashing your daughter's wedding. Thomas and I ran into each other last month, and when he mentioned attending tonight, I couldn't resist seeing him again. Janet's eyes widened. How wonderful. How do you two know each other? We met 5 years ago at a charity fundraiser, Gabrielle said smoothly. I was volunteering with the catering company I work for. Thomas was giving a speech about technology education in underserved communities. We talked for hours that night, but the timing wasn't right for either of us. Life got in the way as it does. Thomas picked up the thread naturally. When I saw her again last month, completely by chance at Sophie's school fundraiser, I knew I couldn't let her slip away twice. The lie flowed easily because Gabriel had crafted it with just enough truth. He had given that speech 5 years ago. He did attend Sophie's school fundraisers. The story was believable. Janet's expression shifted from suspicion to delight. How romantic. Well, I'm thrilled you're here, Gabriel. Thomas has been alone too long. After Janet hurried away to spread this new gossip, Gabriel sat back down. That should start the counter-narrative. Give it 20 minutes and the whole room will know. Thomas studied her profile as she bent over Sophie's drawing, offering color suggestions. This stranger had just stepped into his life and changed everything with simple kindness. Why are you really doing this? He asked quietly. Gabriel met his eyes. Because I can. Because it's right. Because that little girl deserves one night where she doesn't hear lies about her parents. Is that enough? It was more than enough. It was everything. What do I owe you? Thomas asked. Nothing. Not a single thing. Just let me help tonight and we'll call it even. Thomas nodded slowly. But even as he accepted her words, he knew this wouldn't end tonight. This woman had shown him more genuine compassion in 10 minutes than most people in his social circle had shown in 2 years. He would find a way to properly thank her, to help her the way she was helping his daughter. But for now he simply sat beside her and Sophie, and let himself breathe freely for the first time in months. The evening had just begun, and already everything had changed. The next hour passed in a blur of carefully crafted fiction and surprisingly genuine moments. Gabriel proved to be a natural storyteller, weaving details of their relationship, with enough specificity to satisfy the curious but enough vagueness to avoid tripping over contradictions. So after that first night 5 years ago we exchanged numbers, Gabriel explained to a small group of women who'd gravitated to their table. But I was finishing school, working 2 jobs, and Thomas was dealing with Rebecca's illness. We texted occasionally, just checking in, but the timing was all wrong. One of the earlier gossips, a woman named Patricia Hutchinson, leaned forward with barely concealed skepticism. And you just happened to run into each other again? At Sophie's school, Thomas confirmed, his hand resting naturally on the back of Gabriel's chair. The gesture felt right, protective in a way he hadn't felt in years. I was setting up for the science fair fundraiser. Gabrielle was there with her neighbor's daughter. We recognized each other immediately. Sophie looked up from her dragon drawing, which now featured 3 dragons in different colors. Miss Gabrielle helped me with my volcano project. It was the best volcano in the whole fair. This detail was pure invention, but Sophie had understood the game quickly. Children were adaptable that way, especially when protecting someone they loved. I'm sure it was beautiful, Patricia said, her tone still doubtful. It's just so surprising. Thomas has been quite adamant about his privacy since Rebecca passed. Grief takes time, Gabrielle said gently, meeting Patricia's eyes with calm directness. There's no timeline for healing. Thomas has been focused on Sophie as he should be. I respect that completely. The simple dignity in her response silenced Patricia's skepticism. What could anyone say to such reasonableness? As the women dispersed to spread this new, more palatable version of Thomas Bradford's life, he leaned closer to Gabrielle. You're remarkably good at this. She laughed softly. I've worked in service industry since I was 16. You learn to read people, adapt to situations, make everyone comfortable. It's survival. It's more than that. It's a gift. Gabrielle turned to look at him fully, and Thomas was struck again by the genuine warmth in her expression. You're easy to help. You're honest about your grief, about your priorities. That makes everything easier. Sophie tugged Gabrielle's sleeve. Are you going to stay for dinner? They have chicken and those little potatoes. I'm not really a guest, sweetheart. I'm working. But you're on break, Thomas interjected. And I'd very much like you to stay. As my genuine guest, not as part of the performance. Gabrielle hesitated, and Thomas could see the internal debate playing across her face. I shouldn't. My supervisor. I'll speak to the catering manager. I'll make sure you're not penalized for the time. Please, Gabrielle. You've given Sophie and me an incredible gift tonight. Let me at least feed you a proper meal. Say yes. Sophie bounced in her chair. Please, Miss Gabrielle. The potatoes are really good. Gabrielle's resistance crumbled under Sophie's enthusiasm. All right. But only because those potatoes do sound really good. Thomas flagged down the catering manager, a thin man with graying hair and a perpetually worried expression. A brief, private conversation and a generous donation to the catering company's employee fund secured Gabriel's evening off without consequences. When he returned to the table, Sophie was showing Gabriel photos on his phone, narrating each image with 6-year-old intensity. "This is me and Mommy at the beach. I was 4. See my sandcastle? Mommy said it was the best sandcastle ever made." Gabriel studied the photo with genuine attention. "Your mommy was beautiful. You have her smile. Daddy says I have her laugh too. The happy one that sounds like bells." Thomas sat down, his throat tight. "She did laugh like bells. Especially when you did something silly. Like when I put spaghetti on my head? Exactly like that." Gabriel handed the phone back carefully. "It sounds like you have wonderful memories." "We do," Thomas said. Rebecca made sure of that. Even at the end, she was planning things for Sophie to remember. Birthday videos for years in advance. Letters for important milestones. She knew she wouldn't be here, so she found ways to stay present. "That's love," Gabriel said simply. "Real, selfless love." The dinner service began, and they settled into a comfortable rhythm. Sophie chattered between bites, telling Gabriel about her school, her friends, her beloved pet hamster named Sir Squeaks-a-Lot. Thomas found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't since Rebecca's funeral. Gabriel asked thoughtful questions, listened with real interest and responded with humor and warmth. She wasn't performing anymore. This was genuine. "Do you have any brothers or sisters?" Sophie asked. "No, it's just me and my mom." "Well, it was. She passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack, very sudden." Thomas straightened. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you. It was hard. We were very close. But I had time to tell her I loved her that morning, so I'm grateful for that." "Do you miss her every day?" Sophie asked with the blunt honesty of childhood. "Every single day. But missing someone means they mattered, right? It means they left something beautiful behind." Sophie considered this seriously. "I like that. I'm going to remember that." After dinner, as the band started playing and couples moved to the dance floor, Sophie yawned dramatically. "Someone's tired," Gabriel observed. "I'm not tired," Sophie protested, immediately contradicting herself with another yawn. Thomas checked his watch. 8:30. Past Sophie's bedtime, but he'd hoped to stay long enough to satisfy social obligations. "We should probably head home soon. Would you?" Gabriel paused, seeming uncertain for the first time all evening. "Would you like me to take her to the ladies' lounge? Let her rest for a bit while you handle the social rounds? There's a couch in there, quiet and away from the noise." The offer was practical and kind. Thomas nodded gratefully. "That would be wonderful. Thank you." Gabrielle stood, extending her hand to Sophie. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go find that couch." Sophie took her hand without hesitation, and Thomas watched them weave through the crowd together. His daughter, who'd been so cautious around new people, had accepted Gabrielle completely. He used the next 30 minutes to make his rounds, thanking the hosts, congratulating the newlyweds, exchanging pleasantries with business associates. The conversations were notably different now. People asked about Gabriel with curiosity but not cruelty. The narrative had shifted. When he returned to collect Sophie and Gabriel, he found them on the lounge couch. Sophie was curled against Gabriel's side, fast asleep. Gabrielle had her arm around the child protectively, her own eyes half closed. "Sorry," she whispered when she saw him. She crashed hard. "Don't apologize. Thank you for taking care of her." Thomas carefully gathered Sophie into his arms. She murmured sleepily but didn't wake. Gabrielle stood, smoothing her uniform dress. "I should get back to work. My break is definitely over." "Walk us to the car first?" Thomas asked. "Please?" They made their way through the club's elegant corridors to the parking lot. Thomas's BMW was parked in the front row, courtesy of his relationship with the club. He settled Sophie into her car seat, buckling her carefully. When he straightened, Gabrielle was standing a respectful distance away, her arms crossed against the cool evening air. "I don't know how to thank you adequately," Thomas said. "You changed everything tonight. You don't need to thank me. I'm glad I could help. I'd like to do something for you. Please, let me help you somehow." Gabrielle shook her head. "That's not why I did this." "I know. But that doesn't mean I can't express gratitude." Thomas pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card. "This has my personal number. If you ever need anything, truly anything, please call me. A reference for a job, help with something, anything at all." Gabrielle took the card hesitantly. I don't need anything. Maybe not today. But life is unpredictable. Just keep it. Please. She tucked the card into her pocket. All right. And Thomas? Tonight wasn't a lie, not entirely. I genuinely enjoyed spending time with you and Sophie. That was real. I know. I felt it too. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the wedding muffled by distance. I should go, Gabrielle finally said. Drive safely. Wait, Thomas heard himself say. Are you working tomorrow? No, it's my day off from both jobs. Would you consider having lunch with us? Just as friends. Sophie would love to see you again, and honestly, so would I. Gabrielle studied him carefully. Just lunch? No obligations. Just lunch. My treat. You pick the place. She smiled. There's a diner on Market Street. Bailey's. Best pancakes in the city, and they serve breakfast all day. Bailey's at noon? All right. But I'm paying for my own meal. Thomas wanted to argue but recognized the importance of letting her maintain control. Deal. Gabrielle walked back toward the club entrance, turning once to wave. Thomas waved back, then climbed into his car. As he drove home through quiet streets, Sophie stirring occasionally in the back seat, Thomas thought about the evening's strange turn. A waitress had saved him from social torture. A stranger had shown his daughter more kindness than most family friends. And somehow, impossibly, he felt lighter than he had in 2 years. Bailey's Diner occupied a corner spot on Market Street, its red and chrome exterior gleaming in the Sunday afternoon sun. Thomas pulled into the parking lot at 11:55, Sophie bouncing excitedly in her booster seat. Is Miss Gabrielle really coming, Daddy? She said she would, and I believe her. What if she forgot? Then we'll have a nice lunch together, just us. But I don't think she forgot. Sophie pressed her face against the window, scanning the sidewalk. There she is. Gabrielle walked toward them wearing jeans and a bright blue sweater, her curls loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, more relaxed than she had in her uniform. She waved when she spotted their car. Thomas helped Sophie out, and his daughter immediately ran to Gabrielle, who crouched down to hug her. You came. Sophie squealed. Of course I came. I promised, didn't I? Some people break promises. Not me. When I promise something, I mean it. They entered the diner together, the bell above the door chiming cheerfully. The interior was classic Americana. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, a long counter with spinning stools. A waitress with gray hair and a kind face showed them to a booth near the window. I haven't been here in years, Thomas admitted as they settled in. Rebecca used to bring Sophie here on Saturday mornings. Mommy always ordered blueberry pancakes, Sophie said. And she let me have chocolate milk. Gabrielle smiled. Chocolate milk is the best. Are you going to have it today? Yes. And pancakes with strawberries. The waitress took their orders. Chocolate chip pancakes for Sophie, a Western omelet for Thomas, and a short stack with bacon for Gabrielle. As they waited for their food, the conversation flowed easily. Tell me about your jobs, Thomas said. You mentioned working 2 places. I work at the country club 3 nights a week, catering events. The other 4 days, I'm at Riverside Elementary in the cafeteria. I help prepare and serve lunch, clean up afterward. That's Sophie's school, Thomas realized. I know. I've seen you a few times during drop-off. You probably didn't notice me. Sophie leaned forward. Do you know my teacher, Miss Patterson? I do. She always asks for extra fruit salad. Says it helps her think during afternoon lessons. She's the best teacher ever. She let us have a class hamster. Sir Squeaks-a-Lot, Thomas supplied. Gabrielle laughed. That's an excellent name for a hamster. Their food arrived, and they ate with the comfortable ease of old friends rather than near strangers. Thomas watched Gabrielle interact with Sophie, noting her genuine interest in everything his daughter said. She didn't talk down to Sophie or dismiss her childish observations. She engaged fully, asking follow-up questions, sharing relevant stories. Why did you stop going to college? Sophie asked suddenly with the bluntness children specialized in. Sophie, Thomas warned gently. That might be personal. It's okay, Gabrielle said. I don't mind. I was studying early childhood education. I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. But my mom got sick my junior year. The medical bills were expensive and I had to work more hours. Then she died and I had debts to pay off. I kept meaning to go back, but life kept happening. Do you still want to be a teacher? Thomas asked. Sometimes. But I'm 28 now. Starting over feels complicated. It's never too late, Thomas said. And early childhood education programs often have night classes, part-time options. Gabrielle shrugged. Maybe someday. Right now, I'm focused on stability. I like my jobs. They're honest work and I'm good at them. Thomas respected that. There was no shame in her voice, no apologetic tone. She knew her worth. After lunch they walked to the small park across the street. Sophie ran ahead to the playground while Thomas and Gabrielle sat on a bench, watching her climb and swing. Last night was strange, Gabrielle said. I keep thinking about those women, the horrible things they said about you and Rebecca. People create narratives to make sense of tragedy. It's easier to blame someone than to accept that bad things happen randomly. It's cruel though. And Sophie heard everything. I know. That's what gutted me. I can handle gossip about myself, but hearing her ask if I made her mother sick. Thomas's voice cracked. That nearly broke me. Gabrielle's hand found his, squeezing gently. You're a good father. Anyone who spends 5 minutes with you and Sophie can see that. Thank you for what you did. Seriously. You gave me my dignity back. You protected Sophie. I'll never forget that. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Sophie make friends with another little girl on the swings. Can I ask you something? Gabrielle said eventually. Anything. What do you really do? I know you're wealthy obviously, but I don't actually know how. Thomas smiled. I started a software company 15 years ago. Educational technology specifically. Programs that help teachers customize learning for students with different needs and abilities. We've grown significantly. Last year we were acquired by a larger tech company, but I stayed on as CEO of our division. So you help kids learn better? That's the goal. Every child processes information differently. Our software adapts to individual learning styles. That's beautiful work. It matters to me. My younger brother had severe dyslexia. School was torture for him because teachers didn't know how to help. He eventually dropped out, struggled for years. If we'd had better tools, adaptive technology, his path might have been different. Is he okay now? He's thriving. He's a carpenter, makes custom furniture. Found his calling outside traditional education. But it was a hard road. Sophie ran over, breathless and happy. Daddy, I made a friend. Her name is Amara, and she has a hamster too. Can she come over sometime? If her parents say yes, absolutely. Sophie ran back to continue playing and Thomas turned to Gabrielle again. I have a proposition for you. Hear me out before you say no. Gabrielle tensed slightly. Okay. Sophie needs a nanny. She's in school during the day but I work long hours sometimes. My current arrangement is a rotation of different caregivers, and she doesn't connect with any of them. She's withdrawn, quiet. But with you last night and today she's like she used to be. Bright and open. Thomas? I would pay you significantly more than your 2 current jobs combined. You'd have your own space, the guest house on my property. Full benefits including health insurance. And I would pay for you to finish your degree if you wanted. Part-time classes, whatever schedule works. Gabrielle stared at him. That's too much. It's not. You'd be caring for my daughter, my most precious person. You'd be giving her stability, consistency, genuine care. That's priceless. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're kind. I know you put yourself at risk last night to protect a stranger's child. I know Sophie trusts you instinctively and children have good instincts. I know you're hardworking, honest and compassionate. That's everything that matters. What if it doesn't work out? Then we'll figure it out like adults. No hard feelings. But I think it will work. And honestly, Gabrielle, you deserve more than scraping by on 2 jobs. Let me help you the way you helped us. Gabrielle looked at Sophie playing happily on the swings. She's special. She is. And she likes you. That hasn't happened with anyone since Rebecca died. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. But Gabrielle? Please say yes. I think this could be really good for all of us. She met his eyes. You're very persuasive. I'm motivated. There's a difference. That evening, after dropping Gabrielle at her apartment with promises to talk soon, Thomas tucked Sophie into bed. She clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, looking up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, is Miss Gabrielle going to be my nanny? I hope so. Would you like that? Very much. She makes me feel safe. Like Mommy used to. Thomas's heart swelled and ached simultaneously. She makes me feel that way too, sweetheart. Do you think Mommy would like her? I think Mommy would love her. Sophie smiled sleepily. Good. Then it's okay. 2 days later, Gabrielle called. I talked to my supervisor at both jobs. Gave my notice. When do I start? Thomas felt relief flood through him. Whenever you're ready. Thank you, Gabrielle. You won't regret this. I know. Because kindness led me to you, and I believe good things come from kindness. She was right. Thomas was certain of it. Moving day arrived on a Saturday morning in early April. Thomas stood in the driveway of his Riverside Hills estate, watching a small moving truck pull up to the guest house. Everything Gabrielle owned fit into one truck. The realization made his chest tight. The guest house was actually more of a cottage, a 3-room structure tucked at the edge of the property. It had a bedroom, bathroom, and an open-concept living area with a kitchenette. Thomas had spent the past week having it cleaned, painted, and furnished with comfortable pieces. Nothing ostentatious but quality items that would make it feel like home. Gabrielle climbed out of the truck, wearing jeans and a red t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked young and slightly overwhelmed. This is too much, she said, staring at the cottage. It's practical, Thomas countered. You need your own space, privacy. This gives you independence while keeping you close enough to help with Sophie. Sophie burst out of the main house, still in her pajamas. Miss Gabrielle? You're here. Can I help you unpack? Absolutely. I need someone to tell me where everything should go. The next few hours passed in organized chaos. Thomas, Gabrielle, and Sophie moved boxes and furniture, arranged belongings, and slowly transformed the cottage into a home. Thomas was surprised by how few possessions Gabrielle had. Clothes, books, some kitchen items, a few photos, and one battered acoustic guitar. You play? He asked, gesturing to the instrument. A little. My mom taught me. I'm not very good, but it relaxes me. You'll have to play for Sophie sometime. She's been begging for music lessons. By early afternoon, the cottage was settled. Gabrielle stood in the center of her new living room, slowly turning to take it all in. Her eyes were suspiciously bright. Hey, Thomas said softly. You okay? This is the nicest place I've ever lived. I'm not used to having space like this, having things be new and clean and mine. You deserve it. Get comfortable. Settle in. We'll start officially on Monday, but today and tomorrow are yours to adjust. Sophie tugged Gabrielle's hand. Want to see my room? And meet Sir Squeaks-a-Lot properly? I would love that. Thomas watched them walk toward the main house, hand in hand. He'd made the right decision. He knew it in his bones. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Thomas knocked on the cottage door. Gabrielle answered in comfortable clothes, her hair damp from a shower. Sorry to bother you, Thomas said. I wanted to go over the basics. Schedule, expectations, that kind of thing. Come in. The cottage already felt lived in. Gabrielle had added small touches. A colorful throw blanket on the couch, books arranged on the shelf, a framed photo of a woman who must have been her mother on the end table. They sat at the small dining table and Thomas pulled out a folder. Sophie's schedule is pretty straightforward. School from 8 to 3. I handle morning drop-off on my way to work. You do pickup. After school there's homework time, then she usually plays or reads until dinner at 6. What about activities? Sports clubs? She takes piano lessons Tuesday afternoons. Swimming on Thursdays. Those are at the community center about 10 minutes away. Gabrielle nodded, taking notes on her phone. Bedtime is 8 during the school week, 9 on weekends. She likes to read before bed. Currently she's obsessed with books about dragons and brave princesses. I noticed the dragon theme, Gabrielle said with a smile. Rebecca started it. Read her every dragon book in existence. Now Sophie collects them. They went through more details. Dietary preferences, allergies, emergency contacts. Thomas found himself relaxing as they talked. Gabrielle asked smart questions, took notes, and offered thoughtful suggestions. What about you? She asked eventually. Your schedule, I mean. So I know when you'll be around. I try to leave by 7:30. Home by 6 most nights, sometimes later if there's a crisis. I work from home Fridays. And I'm always available by phone if Sophie needs me. You're very hands-on for a CO. Sophie's my priority. Work is important, but she comes first. Always. Rebecca would be proud of you. The simple statement hit Thomas harder than expected. I hope so. I'm trying. Some days are better than others. That's all anyone can do. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Gabrielle, I want you to feel free to be yourself here. This isn't just a job. You're part of our lives now. If something isn't working, tell me. If you need something, ask. This only works if we communicate honestly. I appreciate that. I'll do my best with Sophie. She's an amazing kid. She is. And she already loves you. That's not something I say lightly. After Thomas left, Gabrielle stood at her cottage window, looking toward the main house. The past week had been surreal. One act of kindness at a wedding had completely changed her life trajectory. She thought about her mother, who would have loved this turn of events. Her mother had always said kindness was its own reward, that helping others would come back tenfold. Gabrielle had always believed it, but now she was living proof. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas: "Thank you again for taking this chance. Sleep well." She typed back, "Thank you for trusting me. See you Monday." Monday morning arrived bright and clear. Gabrielle woke at 6, showered, and dressed in comfortable but neat clothes, jeans and a green button-down shirt. She walked to the main house at 7, using the key Thomas had given her. The kitchen was warm and smelled like coffee. Thomas stood at the counter, making breakfast while Sophie sat at the island, coloring. "Good morning," Gabrielle said. "Miss Gabrielle." Sophie jumped down and hugged her. "You're here." "I am. Every day now." "What are you drawing?" "A picture of our house. See, that's your cottage." Thomas slid a mug of coffee across the counter to Gabrielle. "Cream and sugar are there. Help yourself to breakfast. I'm making scrambled eggs." They fell into an easy rhythm. Thomas cooked, Gabrielle set the table, and Sophie provided running commentary on everything. After breakfast, Thomas left for work with quick hugs for both Gabrielle and Sophie. "All right, kiddo," Gabrielle said. "Let's get you to school." The drive was filled with Sophie's chatter. She talked about her best friend Lily, her upcoming spelling test, the art project they were starting. Gabrielle listened carefully, filing away details. Drop-off was smooth. Sophie hugged Gabrielle goodbye without hesitation, then ran to join her classmates. Several other parents glanced curiously at Gabrielle, but no one approached. The day stretched ahead. Gabrielle spent the morning grocery shopping, following the list Thomas had left. She cleaned the already clean house, started laundry, and prepared ingredients for dinner. At 2:30 she headed to school for pickup. Sophie emerged with Lily, a petite girl with auburn hair and freckles. "This is my new nanny, Miss Gabrielle," Sophie announced proudly. "Hi, Miss Gabrielle," Lily said shyly. "Hi, Lily. Sophie talks about you all the time." At home they settled into homework. Sophie struggled with math and Gabrielle patiently worked through problems with her, breaking down concepts until they made sense. "You're good at explaining," Sophie said. "Better than my last nanny." "Thank you. I like helping people learn." "Daddy said you want to be a teacher." "I do. Maybe someday." "You'd be the best teacher ever." That evening Thomas came home at 6:15, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. The house smelled like roasted chicken and vegetables. "Something smells amazing," he said. "Miss Gabrielle made dinner," Sophie reported. "And she helped me with all my homework and we played dragons and she braided my hair." Thomas looked at Gabrielle, who was setting the table. "You didn't have to cook." "I wanted to. It's part of taking care of Sophie. Making sure she eats well." They ate together and Thomas marveled at how natural it felt. Like they'd been doing this for years, not just one day. After dinner, while Sophie played in the living room, Thomas helped Gabrielle clean up. "How was your first day?" he asked. "Perfect. Sophie's wonderful. Easy to care for, polite, smart. She can be stubborn sometimes. Fair warning. I'd be worried if she wasn't. Stubborn kids grow into strong adults." Thomas laughed. Rebecca used to say the same thing. That night, after tucking Sophie in, Thomas stood on his back patio, looking toward the cottage. Lights glowed warmly through the windows. Gabrielle was settling into her new life, and somehow she brought light back into his and Sophie's lives too. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister-in-law Diane: "Heard you hired a new nanny. When do we meet her?" Thomas grimaced. Diane had been critical of every nanny he'd hired, always finding fault. But she couldn't fault Gabrielle. No one could. He typed back, "Soon. She just started. Give us time to adjust." Another text: "Just looking out for Sophie. You know that." Thomas knew. But Diane's version of looking out often felt like interference. He'd deal with it when necessary. For now, he just wanted to enjoy the peace Gabrielle had brought to his home. In the cottage, Gabrielle sat on her couch with her guitar, strumming softly. She played a melody her mother had taught her, a lullaby about stars and dreams. Her phone rang. Her former roommate Tanya. "Girl, are you living in a mansion now?" Gabrielle laughed. "Not the mansion. The guest house. But it's really nice, Tanya. Like, nicer than anywhere I've ever lived." "And the job?" "The kid. Perfect. Sophie's the sweetest child ever. And Thomas is respectful, kind. I think this is going to work. I'm happy for you. You deserve good things. After hanging up, Gabrielle returned to her guitar. She thought about the past week, the strange journey from wedding waitress to nanny for a billionaire's daughter. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, "Do good, baby girl. The universe notices kindness." The universe had noticed, and Gabrielle was grateful. 3 weeks passed in comfortable routine. Gabrielle settled into life at the Bradford estate like she'd always belonged there. She learned Sophie's quirks, how she liked her toast cut diagonally, not straight across, how she needed a nightlight shaped like a moon, how she processed emotions through drawing. One afternoon, Sophie came home from school unusually quiet. She went straight to her room without her usual cheerful chatter. Gabrielle knocked gently on the doorframe. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Sophie sat on her bed, clutching a stuffed dragon, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, honey." Gabrielle sat beside her, not touching but close. "What happened?" "There's a Mother's Day project at school. We have to make cards and write about our moms." Sophie's voice broke. "I don't have a mom to write about anymore." Gabrielle's heart cracked. "You absolutely have a mom to write about. Your mom who loved you more than anything in the world. But she's gone. Everyone else has moms who are alive. Lily said her mom is coming to the presentation. My mom can't come." "No, she can't. And that's really unfair and really sad. You're allowed to be upset about that." Sophie looked up with red, swollen eyes. "Miss Patterson said I could write about you instead if I wanted. But that feels wrong. You're not my mom." "You're right. I'm not your mom and I would never try to replace her. Your mom was Rebecca. She carried you, gave birth to you, loved you every single day of your life. Nothing changes that." "Then what do I do?" Gabrielle thought carefully. "You write about your mom. You tell everyone what made her special. You share your favorite memory. And you know what? I bet your dad has videos and photos we can make a presentation from. We can show everyone who your mom was." Sophie wiped her eyes. "Really? We can do that?" "Absolutely. And it won't be sad. It'll be a celebration of how lucky you were to have her, even if it wasn't long enough." That evening, Gabrielle approached Thomas in his home office. He looked up from his laptop, concern immediate on his face. "What's wrong?" Sophie had a hard day. "There's a Mother's Day project at school." She explained the situation. Thomas closed his eyes, pain flashing across his features. "I should have anticipated this. I used to get notices about school projects." "Hey, no guilt. You can't think of everything. But I told Sophie we'd help her create something beautiful to honor Rebecca. You have videos? Photos we could use?" "Hundreds. Rebecca documented everything." He stood. "Let's do this now. Sophie needs to see we're serious." They found Sophie in the living room, drawing half-heartedly. When Thomas explained they were going to create the best Mother's Day presentation ever, her face lit up. For the next 2 hours they sorted through memories. Videos of Rebecca reading to baby Sophie. Photos of birthday parties, beach trips, ordinary moments made extraordinary by love. Sophie narrated each memory, her voice growing stronger and more confident. "This one," she said, pointing to a photo of Rebecca in a hospital bed, bald from chemotherapy, holding Sophie close. Both were laughing. "This is my favorite. Mommy was so sick but she's still smiling. Because being with you made her happy," Thomas said, his voice thick. "No matter how bad she felt, you were her joy." They compiled everything into a digital presentation with Sophie's narration. By the time they finished, all three were crying and laughing simultaneously. "Thank you," Sophie whispered, hugging Gabrielle tight. "For not making me forget Mommy." "Never. We'll always remember her together." After Sophie went to bed, Thomas and Gabrielle sat on the back patio, the night air cool and fresh. "You handled that perfectly," Thomas said. Some of the other nannies tried to distract Sophie from her grief. "You met her in it. Grief doesn't go away by ignoring it. It needs space and acknowledgement." "Where did you learn that?" "From my own grief. After my mom died, everyone wanted me to move on, to be okay. But I needed time to be not okay. I needed people who would sit with me in the sadness." Thomas studied her in the dim light. "You're extraordinary, you know that?" Gabrielle shook her head. "I'm just someone who's been where Sophie is. That gives me perspective." "It's more than perspective. It's empathy. True empathy." They sat in companionable silence, the sounds of night crickets filling the air. "Can I ask you something personal?" Thomas said. "Sure. Why aren't you married? Dating? You're beautiful, kind, smart. I can't imagine you lack options. Gabrielle smiled wryly. I've dated. Nothing serious. Guys tend to get intimidated when they realize I work 2 jobs, live paycheck to paycheck, have student debt. Or they see me as a project to fix. Neither feels good. Their loss. Maybe. Or maybe I just haven't met the right person yet. I'm not in a hurry. My mom always said love finds you when you stop looking so hard. Smart woman. The smartest. The next day was Saturday. Thomas had plans to take Sophie to the aquarium, and he asked Gabrielle to join them. It's your day off, he said. You don't have to come. I want to. If that's okay. The aquarium was crowded with families. They moved through exhibits, Sophie pressing her face against glass to watch sharks, rays, and colorful tropical fish. Thomas bought her a stuffed octopus from the gift shop, and she named it Dr. Tentacles. At the touch pool, Sophie hesitated before the starfish and sea anemones. It's okay to be scared, Gabrielle encouraged. But sometimes the best things happen when we're brave. Sophie slowly reached in, squealing when a starfish tickled her palm. I did it. You're the bravest girl I know, Thomas said, pride evident in his voice. They ate lunch at the aquarium cafe, sharing fries and conversation. An elderly couple at the next table smiled at them. Beautiful family, the woman said. Thomas and Gabrielle exchanged glances but didn't correct her. Sophie beamed. On the drive home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, clutching Dr. Tentacles. Thank you for today, Thomas said quietly. For every day, actually. I don't think I've told you enough how much your presence means. You don't have to keep thanking me. This is my job. It's more than a job now. At least it is for Sophie. And for me. Gabrielle met his eyes briefly before looking away. Something unspoken hung in the air between them, fragile and new. That night, Gabrielle returned to her cottage feeling unsettled in a way she couldn't name. She liked Thomas. More than she should. And Sophie felt like her own child, which was dangerous territory. She called Tanya, needing to process. I think I'm getting too attached, she confessed. Is that necessarily bad? Tanya asked. You're caring for his daughter. Attachment comes with the territory. But I'm starting to have feelings for him. Thomas. That's not okay. Why not? He's single. You're single. You spend time together. It's natural. He's my boss. He's a billionaire. I work for him. And those are just circumstances. What matters is how you treat each other. I don't want to mess this up for Sophie. She's been through so much. Then be careful. But don't close yourself off to possibilities just because they're complicated. After hanging up, Gabrielle sat with her guitar, playing softly. She thought about Thomas's smile, the way he looked at his daughter, his genuine kindness. She thought about how he'd accepted her help at the wedding without hesitation. How he'd offered her this job immediately, trusting his instincts. Maybe Tanya was right. Maybe possibilities were worth exploring, even complicated ones. But for now, she'd focus on Sophie. On being the best nanny, the best support system she could be. The rest would sort itself out eventually. May brought warmer weather and longer days. Gabrielle had been with the Bradfords for 6 weeks, and the household had settled into a comfortable rhythm that felt more like family than employment. One Thursday evening, Gabrielle stayed late because Thomas had an important business dinner. Sophie was already in her pajamas, and they were building an elaborate castle out of blocks when the front door opened. Thomas entered, looking exhausted and frustrated. His tie was loosened, his usually neat hair disheveled. Daddy. Sophie ran to hug him. We're building Mommy's dream castle. The one with 7 towers. Thomas's expression softened immediately. 7 towers? That's ambitious. Miss Gabrielle remembered the story. About how Mommy wanted to live in a castle with 1 tower for each day of the week. Thomas met Gabrielle's eyes over Sophie's head, surprise and gratitude evident. You remembered that? Sophie mentioned it a few weeks ago. It seemed important. After Sophie was in bed, Thomas found Gabrielle in the kitchen making tea. Rough meeting? She asked, pouring a second cup without asking. Thomas accepted it gratefully. Dealing with executives who think profit matters more than the mission. Our software is supposed to help underserved schools. They want to focus on wealthy districts because the margins are better. But that defeats the purpose. Exactly. I spent 3 hours arguing about ethics versus economics. He rubbed his temples. Some days I question whether staying on after the acquisition was the right choice. Could you leave? Technically, yes. I have financial freedom. But the company is my creation. Walking away feels like abandoning my principles. Gabrielle sat across from him at the kitchen island. What would Rebecca have said? Thomas smiled sadly. She'd have told me life's too short to spend it fighting battles that drain your soul. She'd have reminded me that I can do more good starting fresh than staying where I'm not valued. Sounds like she was wise. She was. About everything. Thomas looked at Gabrielle directly. You remind me of her sometimes. Not in appearance but in spirit. She had this same quality of seeing what people needed and providing it naturally. That's a beautiful compliment. I mean it. Sophie's happier than she's been in 2 years. She laughs more, opens up more. That's because of you. She's easy to care for. She's resilient and kind. She's learned kindness from watching you. They talked for another hour, conversation flowing easily between serious topics and lighter moments. Gabrielle shared stories from her elementary school job, and Thomas talked about his brother's upcoming visit. He wants to meet you, Thomas said. My brother Daniel. He's curious about the woman who's made such a difference in our lives. I'd like that. When Gabrielle finally returned to her cottage around 11, she felt energized despite the late hour. These quiet conversations with Thomas had become her favorite part of the day. The following weekend, Daniel Bradford arrived for Sunday brunch. He was younger than Thomas by 5 years, with the same strong features but a more relaxed demeanor. Sawdust clung to his jeans despite his obvious attempt to clean up. You must be Gabrielle, he said, shaking her hand firmly. I've heard great things. Nice to meet you, Daniel. Sophie attached herself to her uncle immediately, dragging him to see her room, her toys, and Sir Squeaks-a-Lot. Over brunch, prepared jointly by Thomas and Gabrielle, Daniel regaled them with stories from his custom furniture business. I just finished a commission for a library. Built-in shelves, floor to ceiling with a rolling ladder. Took 3 months but it's gorgeous. That sounds amazing, Gabrielle said. Do you have photos? Daniel pulled out his phone eagerly, showing images of his work. The craftsmanship was stunning. You're an artist, Gabrielle said. I'm a carpenter who got lucky. Don't let him downplay his talent, Thomas interjected. He's one of the best in the state. After brunch, while Sophie and Thomas played in the yard, Daniel helped Gabrielle clean up. So, he said casually, you and my brother. Gabrielle's hands stilled. What about us? He's happier than I've seen him since Rebecca died. And the way he talks about you. Daniel smiled. I'm not blind. We're just friends. I work for him. Right now, sure. But come on. The chemistry is obvious. There's Sophie to consider. I won't do anything that could hurt her. What if what helps Sophie is seeing her dad happy again? Seeing love modeled in a healthy way? Gabrielle considered this. It's complicated. The best things usually are. That conversation stayed with Gabrielle over the following weeks. She found herself noticing small things about Thomas. The way he smiled when Sophie succeeded at something. The careful attention he paid when people spoke. The quiet integrity in how he conducted himself. She also noticed him noticing her. Lingering glances. Hands brushing accidentally. Moments of charged silence. One evening in early June, Thomas came home with exciting news. I did it. I resigned. Gabrielle looked up from helping Sophie with homework. What? I gave notice at the company. I'm starting my own venture. A non-profit focused specifically on educational technology for underserved communities. No profit margins, no investor pressure. Just doing the right thing. Sophie jumped up and down. That's great, Daddy. It means less predictable income initially. Probably longer hours getting it started. But it feels right. It is right, Gabrielle said. Following your principles is always right. That weekend, they celebrated with a small party. Daniel came along with Sophie's best friend Lily and her family. Gabrielle helped organize everything, and by the time guests arrived, the backyard was transformed with decorations, food, and music. Thomas found her in the kitchen, arranging desserts. You didn't have to do all this, he said. I wanted to. This is a big moment. It deserves celebration. Gabrielle. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I need to tell you something. Her heart raced. Okay. These past few months with you have been. He paused, searching for words. I'm happier than I thought I'd ever be again. Not just content, but genuinely happy. And it's because of you. Thomas? I know this is complicated. I know I'm your employer. But somewhere along the way, you became more than Sophie's nanny. You became essential to both of us. Before Gabrielle could respond, Sophie burst into the kitchen. Daddy. Uncle Daniel says we can roast marshmallows. Can we? The moment broke, but Thomas's words hung in the air between them. That night, after everyone left and Sophie was asleep, Gabrielle stood on her cottage porch. Thomas appeared from the main house, walking toward her through the darkness. "I shouldn't have said that earlier," he began. "It wasn't fair to put you in that position." "No," Gabrielle interrupted. "I'm glad you did. Because I feel it too. This pull between us. But I'm scared, Thomas. Scared of messing up what we have. Scared of hurting Sophie if things don't work out. I'm scared too. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting fear keep me from something potentially beautiful." They stood close, not touching, the space between them electric. "What do we do?" Gabrielle whispered. "We go slow. We're honest. We put Sophie first. Always." "Always," Gabrielle agreed. Thomas reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I haven't felt this way since Rebecca. I didn't think I could. But you make me want to try again. I've never felt this way at all. It's terrifying and wonderful simultaneously." They stood like that for a long moment, holding hands under the stars, at the beginning of something neither could name yet but both recognized as significant. "Are you feeling the connection between Thomas and Gabrielle? Do you think they should take the risk of turning their friendship into something more? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to see how their story unfolds. Sometimes the best love stories start with friendship and kindness. "We should probably talk about logistics," Thomas said eventually. "If we're going to explore this, we need boundaries." "Agreed. Sophie can't know until we're sure. She's been through enough instability. And we keep work separate from personal. During the day you're Sophie's nanny. After she's asleep we can be Thomas and Gabrielle." "That sounds reasonable." They made plans to have dinner together the following evening, just the two of them after Sophie was asleep. A real conversation about what they both wanted, what they both feared. As Gabrielle returned to her cottage, she felt lighter and more terrified than she'd ever felt. This could be the best decision of her life or the worst. But as her mother always said, nothing good came from playing it safe all the time. Sometimes you had to be brave. Their first real date happened on a Tuesday night. Thomas grilled steaks while Gabrielle made a salad, working side by side in the kitchen after Sophie was tucked safely in bed. "This feels normal," Gabrielle observed. "We've cooked together 100 times. But different too. Because now we're acknowledging what we're doing." They ate on the back patio, citronella candles keeping mosquitoes at bay, the summer night warm around them. "Tell me about Rebecca," Gabrielle said. "Really tell me. I need to understand." Thomas set down his fork, his expression going distant. "We met in college. She was studying social work, I was deep in computer science. She was the most alive person I'd ever met. She cared about everything and everyone intensely. She sounds wonderful. She was. We got married young, maybe too young. But we grew together instead of apart. When she got pregnant with Sophie she was ecstatic. Said she'd found her purpose." "What was she like as a mom?" "Patient in ways I'm not. Creative. She turned everything into an adventure. Grocery shopping became a treasure hunt. Bedtime became storytime theater. She made ordinary moments magical." Gabrielle listened, hearing the love and pain intertwined in his voice. "When did she get sick?" Sophie was 4. Rebecca had been having symptoms for months, but she ignored them. By the time she went to the doctor it was stage 4. Ovarian cancer. They gave her 18 months. She lasted 22 through sheer determination. She wanted time with Sophie. Every possible second. She recorded videos. Wrote letters for birthdays, graduation, wedding day. She planned Sophie's life from beyond the grave because she couldn't be there to live it. Thomas's voice cracked and Gabrielle reached across the table, taking his hand. The last 3 months were brutal. She was in so much pain but she fought to stay lucid, stay present. "The day she died she made me promise 3 things. He paused. "Promise Sophie would know she was loved. Promise I'd find happiness again. Promise I wouldn't close myself off from the world. You've kept all 3 promises." "I've tried." But moving forward felt like betrayal for a long time. Diane, Rebecca's sister, made comments. Said I should wait longer, respect Rebecca's memory. Made me question everything. "Grief doesn't have a timeline," Gabrielle said firmly. "And loving again doesn't diminish what you had with Rebecca. It honors it. It shows you learned how to love well." Thomas studied her face. "How did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just know pain. My mom's death was sudden, but the aftermath was similar. People had opinions about how I should grieve, how long I should wait before living again. Eventually, I realized they were projecting their fears onto me. Tell me about your mom." Gabrielle smiled. She was fierce. Worked as a nurse for 30 years. Raised me alone, never complained, never made me feel like a burden. She taught me that kindness was strength, not weakness. She'd be proud of you. I hope so. She always said I should use my heart to guide me even when it seemed risky. Especially when it seemed risky. They talked until midnight, sharing stories, fears, hopes. Thomas told her about his dreams for his nonprofit. Gabrielle confessed her desire to eventually return to teaching. I'll pay for your degree, Thomas said. I already offered, but I mean it. Finish school. Become the teacher you're meant to be. That's too much. It's not. Consider it an investment in someone I care about. Gabrielle felt tears prick her eyes. You really mean that? Every word. Over the next few weeks, they continued their careful courtship. Dinner conversations after Sophie slept. Stolen moments during the day when their hands would brush. Glances that lasted too long. Sophie noticed something had shifted, but she couldn't identify what. Daddy seems happier, she said to Gabrielle one afternoon. Do you think he's feeling better about Mommy? I think he's healing. That's different from forgetting. He'll always miss your mom. But it's okay if he's happy too? It's more than okay. It's what your mom wanted. One Saturday, Thomas suggested they visit Rebecca's grave. All three of them. I haven't taken Sophie in a while, he admitted. It's hard. But I think it's time. The cemetery was peaceful, trees providing shade over neat rows of headstones. Rebecca's grave was marked by a simple stone, Rebecca Bradford, beloved wife and mother. Her light lives on. Sophie placed flowers she'd picked from the garden. Hi, Mommy. I miss you. I'm doing good in school. Daddy started a new company. And Miss Gabrielle is teaching me to play guitar. Gabrielle hung back, giving them privacy, but Thomas gestured for her to join them. Rebecca, he said quietly, I want you to meet someone important. This is Gabrielle. She's taking care of Sophie and she's taking care of me too. I think you'd like her. She's kind like you were. And she makes Sophie laugh. Gabrielle felt tears streaming down her face. The intimacy of this moment, the trust Thomas showed by including her, overwhelmed her. Sophie grabbed Gabrielle's hand. Mommy, Miss Gabrielle is really nice. She doesn't try to replace you. She just helps us remember how to be happy. They stood together, this unusual family, honoring the past while cautiously reaching toward the future. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Thomas and Gabrielle sat in his living room. He'd built a fire despite the warm weather, and they watched flames dance in the fireplace. Thank you for today, Thomas said. For coming with us. For understanding. Thank you for including me. That meant everything. Thomas turned to face her fully. I need to tell you something. I'm falling in love with you. I've been fighting it because it feels too fast, too complicated. But it's true. Gabrielle's breath caught. Thomas? You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens, whatever we decide, I want you to know you matter. Deeply. Gabrielle moved closer, taking his face in her hands. I'm falling too. It terrifies me. But I can't stop it and I don't want to. They kissed for the first time, gentle and sweet, a promise of more to come. When they pulled apart, both were crying and smiling simultaneously. This is crazy, Gabrielle whispered. The best things usually are. They spent the rest of the evening talking about next steps. How to tell Sophie eventually. How to navigate their changing relationship. How to protect what they were building. We take it one day at a time, Thomas said. We communicate honestly. We prioritize Sophie. And we trust that kindness and love will guide us right. I can do that. As Gabrielle walked back to her cottage near midnight, she felt transformed. She'd come to this house as a nanny. Now she was becoming something more. Part of a family. Part of a love story she never imagined. Her mother's voice echoed, Do good, baby girl. The universe notices kindness. The universe had noticed. And Gabrielle was ready for whatever came next. July arrived with heat and humidity. Thomas's nonprofit was gaining traction, with several school districts expressing interest in partnerships. Gabrielle had enrolled in online classes, working toward her teaching degree. And Sophie thrived, oblivious to the deepening relationship between her father and Nanny. One evening, Thomas and Gabrielle sat on the cottage porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching fireflies dance across the lawn. I've been thinking, Thomas said. About us. About the future. Gabrielle's heart raced. Okay. I don't want to hide anymore. I want to tell Sophie. Let her know we're together. See how she reacts. What if she's upset? Then we deal with it. But I think she'll be happy. She loves you. And she's been asking questions lately about whether I'll ever date again. What did you tell her? That I might. That being lonely forever doesn't honor her mother's memory. That loving again is healthy. Gabrielle leaned against him, feeling his warmth. When do you want to tell her? Soon. Maybe this weekend? We could plan something special. Make it a positive memory. They decided on a picnic at Sophie's favorite park. Saturday morning dawned clear and beautiful. Gabrielle packed a basket with sandwiches, fruit, and Sophie's favorite chocolate chip cookies. Thomas brought a blanket and a frisbee. Sophie bounced in the back seat, excited for the outing. Are we celebrating something? Sort of, Thomas said. We want to talk to you about something important. At the park, they found a shady spot under an oak tree. Sophie immediately ran off to play on the swings and Thomas and Gabrielle set up their picnic. I'm nervous, Gabrielle admitted. Me too. But we're doing the right thing. After eating, Thomas called Sophie over. She sat cross-legged on the blanket, looking between them curiously. Sophie, you know Miss Gabrielle has been living with us for a few months now, Thomas began. And you know I care about you both very much, Gabrielle added. Sophie nodded, waiting. Thomas took a deep breath. Here's the thing. Over the past few months, Miss Gabrielle and I have become close. More than just friends. We care about each other in a special way. Sophie's eyes widened. Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Yes, like that. How do you feel about that? Sophie was quiet for a long moment, her face serious. Then slowly she smiled. Does this mean Miss Gabrielle might stay forever? Gabrielle's eyes filled with tears. Would you like that? Yes. I love Miss Gabrielle. And Daddy's been so much happier lately. I thought maybe it was his new company, but it's because of you. Thomas pulled Sophie into a hug. You're okay with this? Really okay? Really, really okay. Can I call you Gabrielle now instead of Miss Gabrielle? Of course you can. Sophie hugged Gabrielle tightly. I'm glad Daddy found you. Mommy would be glad too. The three of them sat together, relief and joy washing over them. They'd been so worried about Sophie's reaction, and she'd surprised them with her maturity and openness. That evening, as they watched a movie together, Sophie nestled between Thomas and Gabrielle on the couch. She asked a question. If you guys get married, would you be my new mom? Gabrielle looked at Thomas, unsure how to answer. Gabrielle would be your stepmom, Thomas explained gently. That's different from your mom. Your mom will always be Rebecca. But having a stepmom would mean having another person who loves you and takes care of you. Like having extra love? Exactly like that. I like extra love. Later, after Sophie was in bed, Thomas found Gabrielle in the kitchen, making tea with shaking hands. That question about marriage, he said. It got me thinking. Thomas, we've only been officially together for a few weeks. I know. But I also know what I want. I want you in our lives permanently. I want to wake up next to you. I want Sophie to have the stability of a complete family. I want everything with you. Gabrielle set down her mug. I want that too. But shouldn't we wait? Make sure this is real. It is real. I've never been more certain of anything. He took her hands. I'm not proposing tonight. But I'm telling you my intentions. I'm telling you this is serious for me. It's serious for me too. You and Sophie have become my whole world. They kissed, deep and promising, the future bright between them. Over the next weeks they settled into their new normal. Thomas and Gabrielle were openly affectionate, and Sophie adjusted quickly. She started calling Gabrielle simply Bree, a nickname she'd created herself. Gabrielle is too long, she explained. And Bree sounds like breezy. You make everything feel breezy and easy. Gabrielle loved it. One evening in early August, Thomas came home with a small velvet box. He found Gabrielle in the garden, tending to the flowers she'd planted in the spring. Hi, he said, sitting beside her on the grass. Hey, how was work? Good. Productive. But I left early because I had something important to do. Gabrielle looked up, noticing the box. Her breath caught. Gabrielle Washington, Thomas said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life since Rebecca. You've brought joy back to our home, laughter back to our days. You've loved Sophie as your own and loved me despite all my complications. Tears streamed down Gabrielle's face. I know it's fast by conventional standards. But life is short and precious. I don't want to waste time when I know what I want. I want you. Forever. Will you marry me? Gabrielle launched herself at him, nearly knocking him over. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. Thomas slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed in the garden, surrounded by flowers and fading sunlight. We need to tell Sophie, Gabrielle said. Together. They found Sophie in her room, drawing as usual. When they appeared in the doorway, both grinning, she looked up curiously. Guess what? Thomas said. What? I asked Bree to marry me. Sophie's eyes went huge. What did she say? She said yes. Sophie shrieked with joy, jumping up to hug them both. We're going to be a real family. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a fancy dress? You can be the flower girl, Gabrielle promised. The most important job. That night, after Sophie finally fell asleep, too excited to calm down for hours, Thomas and Gabrielle sat on the cottage porch. Are you sure about this? Gabrielle asked. Really sure? Because once we're married, I'm stuck with you. Thomas laughed. I'm counting on it. And yes, I'm sure. Are you? More sure than I've ever been about anything. You and Sophie are my family now. My home. We always will be. They made plans. A small wedding, immediate family and close friends only. Maybe in the fall, after Sophie started second grade. Nothing extravagant, just meaningful. I want to honor Rebecca somehow, Gabrielle said. She's part of this story. Part of what makes us possible. We'll put her photo in a place of honor. Light a candle for her. Acknowledge that she brought Sophie into the world and made me the man you fell in love with. Perfect. As summer deepened, they prepared for their future. Gabrielle finished her summer courses with excellent grades. Thomas's nonprofit secured major funding. And Sophie blossomed, secure in the knowledge that her family was whole again. But as August became September, a shadow appeared on the horizon. Thomas's sister-in-law, Diane, called to announce she was coming to visit. She doesn't know about us yet, Thomas said, worried. She's going to have opinions. Then we'll deal with them together, Gabrielle said firmly. We're a team now. But neither of them fully anticipated the storm that was coming. Diane Bradford arrived on a Friday afternoon in mid-September, driving up in her expensive SUV with the air of someone preparing for battle. She was an elegant woman in her mid-40s with Rebecca's same blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. Gabrielle watched from the cottage window as Thomas greeted his sister-in-law. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders. Sophie burst out of the house, excited to see her aunt. Aunt Diane. Guess what? Daddy and Bree are getting married. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Diane's expression went from surprise to angry in seconds. Married? Thomas, what is she talking about? Thomas straightened, his voice calm but firm. Let's go inside and talk. Gabrielle knew she should stay in the cottage, give them privacy. But she also knew Thomas might need support. She walked over slowly, approaching the group. You must be Diane, Gabrielle said, extending her hand. I'm Gabrielle. It's nice to finally meet you. Diane looked at her hand like it was contaminated. You're the nanny. I am. And I'm also Thomas's fiancée. How convenient for you. The venom in those words made Gabrielle's stomach twist, but she kept her expression neutral. Diane, Thomas warned. Not in front of Sophie. Sophie, why don't you go pack your weekend bag, Diane said. You're coming to stay with me for a few days. But I don't want to, Sophie protested. I want to stay here with Daddy and Bree. It's not a request. Thomas stepped between Diane and his daughter. Sophie isn't going anywhere. This is her home. Her home where you're replacing her mother with the help? Gabrielle flinched, but Thomas's face went hard as stone. Inside. No. Sophie, go to your room, please. Sophie looked scared, but she obeyed. Once she was inside, Thomas turned to Diane with barely controlled fury. How dare you speak that way in front of my daughter? In front of anyone. How dare I? How dare you? Rebecca's been dead less than 3 years, and you're already engaged to your employee? What happened to respecting her memory? I am respecting her memory by living the life she wanted me to live. She made me promise to find happiness again. Not with someone clearly after your money. I'm not after his money, Gabrielle said quietly but firmly. I fell in love with him and Sophie. That's all. Really? And the fact that he's worth billions has nothing to do with it? The mansion, the lifestyle? I didn't know he was wealthy when I offered to help him at that wedding. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Diane laughed bitterly. You must think we're all idiots. You saw an opportunity and took it. Grieving widower with a young child? Easy target. That's enough, Thomas said, his voice dangerous. Gabrielle is the kindest, most selfless person I've ever met. She's brought light back into our lives. Sophie adores her. I love her. Your opinion of our relationship is noted and dismissed. Sophie doesn't need a replacement mother. She needs stability. Gabrielle is stability. She's been here every day caring for Sophie, supporting us. Where have you been? Calling once a month? Visiting twice a year? Don't lecture me about what Sophie needs. Diane's face crumpled slightly, pain flashing through the anger. I loved my sister. And watching you move on feels like you're erasing her. Thomas's voice softened. I'm not erasing her. I could never erase her. But I can't stay frozen in grief forever. That doesn't honor Rebecca. It betrays her final wishes. This is all happening too fast. For you maybe. But this is my life, my daughter's life. And we're happy. Genuinely happy. Can't you be glad about that? Diane looked at Gabrielle with suspicion still clear in her eyes. I need proof you're not taking advantage of him. Financial records. A background check. Something. No, Thomas said flatly. You don't get to demand that. Gabrielle is my equal partner, not someone who needs to prove her worth to my family. If you won't show me proof, I'll find it myself. And when I expose her for what she really is, you'll thank me. Diane turned and got back in her SUV, peeling out of the driveway with dramatic flair. Gabrielle stood frozen, shame and hurt warring in her chest. Thomas pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry. She had no right to speak to you that way. She's grieving. She's protective of Rebecca's memory. That doesn't excuse cruelty. Inside, they found Sophie sitting on the stairs, tears streaming down her face. Is Aunt Diane going to make Bree go away? No, Thomas said firmly. No one is making anyone go away. Our family is staying together. But over the next week, Diane made good on her threat. She called Thomas's friends, spreading doubt about Gabrielle's motives. She contacted a private investigator to dig into Gabrielle's background. She even showed up at Sophie's school, trying to talk to teachers about the concerning situation at home. Thomas handled each incident with calm firmness, but Gabrielle could see the toll it was taking. Maybe we should wait to get married, she suggested one evening. Give her time to adjust. No, we're not letting her dictate our lives. We're moving forward exactly as planned. But doubt had crept in. Gabrielle found herself second-guessing everything. Was she moving too fast? Had she taken advantage somehow without realizing it? Were people right to be suspicious? One night, she sat in her cottage, staring at her engagement ring, tears streaming down her face. Her phone rang. Tanya. I heard through the grapevine some woman is spreading rumors about you, Tanya said without preamble. I'm assuming that's related to your new situation? Thomas's sister-in-law. She thinks I'm a gold digger. Are you? No. I love him. I love Sophie. I don't care about the money. Then stop letting her make you doubt yourself. You know your truth. Thomas knows your truth. That's all that matters. But what if she's right? What if I did take advantage somehow? Girl, listen to yourself. You helped a stranger because it was the right thing to do. You fell in love naturally. You're building a life with people you care about. There's nothing wrong with any of that. After hanging up, Gabrielle sat with her thoughts. Tanya was right. She knew her own heart. She knew her intentions had always been pure. She walked to the main house, finding Thomas in his office, staring at his computer with a troubled expression. What's wrong? She asked. Diane sent me an email. With a list of reasons we shouldn't get married. Complete with evidence from her investigator. What did they find? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Your credit is decent considering your circumstances. You have no criminal record. No scandals. You're exactly who you say you are. But she's twisted everything to sound suspicious anyway. Gabrielle read over his shoulder. The report detailed her 2 jobs, her student debt, her modest living situation before moving to the estate. All facts, but presented in a way meant to make her look desperate and opportunistic. Thomas, I need to know something. Do you have any doubts? Any concerns about me? He turned to face her fully. None. Zero. I know exactly who you are and I love all of it. Then we ignore her. We live our lives. We get married. We build our family. And eventually she'll see the truth. You're remarkable, Thomas said. Most people would run from this drama. I'm not most people. And I'm not giving up on us because someone can't see past their own pain. They kissed, reaffirming their commitment. The next day, Thomas called Diane and spoke with her for over an hour. Gabrielle couldn't hear the conversation, but when he emerged, he looked exhausted but relieved. I think I got through to her. A little. I reminded her that Rebecca would never want Sophie to lose another female figure due to family conflict. I reminded her that love isn't finite, that me loving Gabrielle doesn't diminish what I felt for her sister. Did she apologize? Not yet. But she agreed to come to dinner next week. To actually get to know you. It's a start. Gabrielle felt cautiously optimistic. Maybe with time and patience Diane would see the truth. Would understand that Gabrielle wasn't replacing Rebecca but honoring her legacy by caring for the family she left behind. The week leading up to the dinner, Gabrielle prepared carefully. She cooked Rebecca's favorite meal, using recipes Sophie helped her find in Rebecca's old cookbook. She set the table with care, placing a framed photo of Rebecca in a place of honor. When Diane arrived, her expression was still guarded but less hostile. They sat down to dinner and initially the conversation was stilted and formal. But gradually as Gabrielle asked Diane about Rebecca, about their childhood, about memories, Diane began to soften. She loved butterflies, Diane shared. When we were kids she'd spend hours in the garden, trying to get them to land on her finger. Sophie does the same thing, Gabrielle said. She must have gotten that from her mom. Diane looked at her with something like surprise. You encourage her to remember Rebecca? Every day. We talk about her constantly. Look at photos. Share stories. I would never want Sophie to forget her mother. Most women in your position would want the past erased. I'm not most women. And the past is what makes this family beautiful. Rebecca loved Sophie and Thomas with her whole heart. That love is still present. I'm just adding to it, not replacing it. By the end of the evening, Diane's hostility had mellowed into cautious acceptance. I'm sorry, she said as she prepared to leave, for how I treated you. I was scared of losing my sister completely. But I can see now that you're keeping her memory alive. You could never lose her. She's in Sophie. She's in this house. She's in Thomas's heart. Always. Diane hugged Gabrielle, awkwardly but genuinely. Take care of them. That's all I ask. I promise. After Diane left, Thomas wrapped his arms around Gabrielle. You did it. You won her over with grace and kindness. I just told the truth. That's always the strongest defense. Sophie appeared in her pajamas. Is Aunt Diane okay now? She's okay. She was just worried about us. But she's not worried anymore. Good. Because I want her at the wedding. She'll be there, Gabrielle assured her. Everyone who loves us will be there. The crisis had passed. The interference had been neutralized not with anger or defensiveness, but with patience, honesty, and kindness. Just as Gabrielle's mother had always taught her. October arrived with crisp air and colorful leaves. The wedding was set for the last Saturday of the month, a small ceremony in the Bradford backyard with 40 guests. Gabrielle spent the week before alternating between excitement and nerves. She'd chosen a simple cream dress, elegant but not extravagant. Sophie had a matching flower girl dress in pale yellow that she'd insisted on wearing around the house every day. I need to practice walking slowly, she explained seriously. So I don't drop the flowers. Thomas had been mysteriously busy, disappearing for hours at a time with vague explanations about wedding surprises. The night before the wedding, as tradition dictated, Thomas stayed with Daniel while Gabrielle and Sophie had the main house to themselves. They made pizza, watched movies, and did face masks. Are you nervous about tomorrow? Sophie asked as Gabrielle tucked her into bed. A little. But mostly excited. I'm really happy you're marrying Daddy. And that you're going to be my stepmom. I'm honored to be your stepmom. You know that, right? It's the best job in the world. Sophie hugged her tight. I love you, Bree. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. After Sophie fell asleep, Gabrielle stood in her cottage one last time. Tomorrow she'd officially move her remaining belongings into the main house, into Thomas's room. This chapter of her life was closing, and a new one was beginning. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Can't sleep. Too excited. I love you. See you at the altar tomorrow. She typed back. Love you too. Can't wait to be your wife. Wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The backyard had been transformed with white chairs, an arch covered in autumn flowers, and strings of lights that would glow as evening fell. Gabrielle got ready with help from Tanya and Sophie. Her hair was swept up in soft curls with small white flowers tucked in. Her dress fit perfectly, simple and elegant. You look like a princess, Sophie breathed. A real one. You look pretty beautiful yourself, flower girl. The ceremony was set for 4 o'clock. At 3:45, Gabrielle's hands started shaking with nerves and excitement. Ready? Tanya asked. So ready. The music started. Sophie walked down the aisle first, taking her role seriously, carefully dropping petals. The guests smiled at her concentration. Then Gabrielle appeared, walking alone. She'd chosen not to have anyone give her away. She was choosing this herself, walking toward her future with confidence. Thomas stood at the altar in a navy suit, his eyes locked on her. As she got closer, she could see he was crying. When she reached him, he took both her hands. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You're not so bad yourself." The officiant, a friend of Thomas's, began the ceremony. But before he got far, Thomas asked to speak. "I know this is untraditional, but I need to say something." He turned to face the guests. "Most of you know my story. I lost my wife Rebecca 3 years ago to cancer. It devastated Sophie and me. We were lost, struggling, just trying to survive each day." He squeezed Gabrielle's hands. "Then this remarkable woman walked into our lives. She saw us suffering at a wedding, heard cruel gossip, and decided to help. She didn't have to. She gained nothing from it. She just saw people in pain and chose kindness." Gabrielle felt tears streaming down her face. That act of kindness changed everything. Gabrielle brought light back into our home. She loved Sophie without hesitation. She loved me despite my baggage. She taught us that healing is possible, that love can grow again, that families can rebuild. He turned back to Gabrielle. "Rebecca made me promise before she died that I would find happiness again. For a long time, I didn't think I could keep that promise. But then I met you. And I realized happiness was possible. Not happiness despite grief, but happiness that honors grief, that acknowledges loss, that makes space for all of it." Thomas pulled out a second ring. This was Rebecca's engagement ring. Before she died, she told me that if I ever remarried, I should give it to my new wife. Not to replace her, but as a blessing. As a bridge between past and future. He showed Gabrielle the ring, a beautiful vintage piece with small diamonds. "Rebecca would have loved you. I know that with certainty. And I want you to have this if you're comfortable wearing it. As a symbol that she approves, that she's blessing this marriage." Gabrielle couldn't speak through her tears. She simply nodded. Thomas slipped both rings on her finger, his engagement ring and Rebecca's. Together they represented everything. Past and present, grief and joy, loss and love. The ceremony continued. They said their vows, traditional words that felt new and profound. When the officiant pronounced them married, Thomas kissed Gabrielle deeply while guests cheered. Sophie rushed up to hug them both. "We're a family now. A real family." The reception was perfect. Dinner, dancing, toasts that made everyone laugh and cry. Daniel gave a speech about Thomas's journey from grief to joy. Diane spoke about Rebecca's love and how she'd approve of this union. Tanya talked about Gabrielle's kind heart. But the most touching moment came when Sophie asked for the microphone. "I'm only 7, so I'm not good at speeches," she began, her voice small but clear. "But I wanted to say something. My mommy died when I was little. It was really sad. Daddy and I were sad for a long time." The crowd was silent, captivated. Then Bree came. She didn't try to replace Mommy. She just helped us remember how to be happy. She talks about Mommy with me. She looks at pictures. She helps me remember. Sophie looked at Gabrielle with pure love. "Mommy told Daddy to find someone who would love me like she did. I think he did. Bree loves me so much. And I love her. And I think Mommy is happy about it." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. As night fell and lights twinkled overhead, Thomas and Gabrielle shared their first dance as husband and wife. The song was "What a Wonderful World," chosen because it felt true. "We did it," Gabrielle whispered. "We built something beautiful from tragedy. We built it with kindness and hope and love. Just like we should." Later, after Sophie was asleep at Daniel's house for the night, after the last guest had left, Thomas and Gabrielle stood in their backyard, looking at the remains of the celebration. "Do you remember that night at the wedding?" Thomas asked. "When you walked up and offered to help? How could I forget? It changed my entire life." "Mine too. I was drowning that night. Your kindness threw me a lifeline. I just did what felt right. That's what makes you extraordinary. Doing what's right is your instinct." They walked to the cottage, which would now serve as a guest house, full of memories of Gabrielle's first months with the Bradford family. "It's strange," Gabrielle said. 6 months ago, I was a waitress working 2 jobs, struggling to make rent. Now I'm married to an incredible man, stepmom to an amazing girl, and starting my teaching degree. Life can change so fast. When you're open to it. When you lead with kindness. That's the key." They returned to the main house, to their bedroom, beginning their life together officially. In the weeks that followed, they settled into married life with surprising ease. Gabrielle continued caring for Sophie while attending online classes. Thomas's nonprofit grew rapidly, serving schools across 3 states. Sophie thrived, secure in the love of her expanded family. Diane became a regular visitor, building a genuine relationship with Gabrielle. She brought photos and stories of Rebecca, helping keep her sister's memory alive. "I'm sorry I was so terrible to you," she said one afternoon over tea. "Fear made me cruel. Fear makes everyone cruel sometimes. The important thing is you found your way past it." 6 months after the wedding, Gabrielle graduated with her teaching degree. The whole family attended the ceremony, Sophie holding a sign that read, "That's my stepmom." Thomas surprised her with a job offer, head teacher for the education program at his nonprofit, designing curriculum for underserved schools. "It's perfect," she said. "I get to teach and help create systemic change. That's what you were always meant to do." On their first anniversary, they returned to the spot where they'd met, the country club where Gabrielle had been a waitress. They were attending another wedding, but this time as guests. "1 year ago, I walked up to a sad man and his daughter and made a wild offer," Gabrielle said. "Best decision of my life was accepting," Thomas replied. Sophie, now 8 and increasingly sophisticated, rolled her eyes. "You guys are so mushy." But she was smiling. As they watched the bride and groom exchange vows, Gabrielle thought about how far they'd come. From strangers to family. From grief to joy. From loss to love. "Do you think we would have found each other if not for that night?" she asked Thomas. "I don't know. Maybe. The universe works in mysterious ways. My mom used to say kindness always comes back to you. She was right. Your kindness saved me. And my gratitude turned to love. And that love built a family." They danced that night like they had at their wedding, surrounded by music and light and possibility. Later, driving home with Sophie asleep in the back seat, they talked about the future. Maybe expanding their family someday. Definitely continuing their work helping kids learn. Always prioritizing love and kindness. "I'm proud of us," Gabrielle said. "We took something broken and built it into something beautiful. We took something beautiful that was shattered and carefully pieced it back together. That's different. Better, maybe. I like that. We're not starting from nothing. We're building on Rebecca's foundation of love. She'd be proud of that. Proud of you." When they arrived home, Thomas carried sleeping Sophie inside while Gabrielle stood in the yard, looking at the house that had become her home. A year ago she'd been afraid, uncertain, struggling. Now she was exactly where she belonged. She thought about all the moments that led here. The decision to work at that wedding. The impulse to help a stranger. The courage to accept Thomas's job offer. The bravery to fall in love. Every choice had been guided by the principles her mother taught her. Kindness, hope, and love. Those principles had led her home. Thomas appeared beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How kindness saved us. How hope rebuilt us. How love completed us. Perfect summary of our story." They stood together in the moonlight, this family built from tragedy and triumph, grief and grace. Behind them the house glowed warmly. Sophie's room light was on as Thomas had carried her to bed. The cottage stood quiet but welcoming. The yard where they'd married showed evidence of their life. Sophie's play equipment, Gabrielle's garden, spaces where love lived and breathed. "Ready to go inside?" Thomas asked. "Ready to go home," Gabrielle corrected. And hand in hand they walked toward their future.